Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Achieve Tax Season Success with Xpitax Onshore Outsourcing Services. First and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are happy, healthy, and staying safe. For today's webinar, Wolters, Kluwer, Drew Thomason, and Elliot Becker will walk you through how you can experience a successful tax season with our outsourcing services. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. However, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. And if you would like a copy of today's webinar recording, please email taana-webinars@wolterskluwer.com. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Drew Thomason.
Thank you, Alyssa, so much. Again, hope everybody is doing well today as we get close to celebrating the holiday season. A few housekeeping notes to kick off our webinar, this webinar this afternoon. The audio, you can listen to the webinar through your computer speakers or using the dial information that's included in the registration link you received. So if you can't hear it over your computer, look for the registration link and there will be a phone number there that you can call and use your telephone speaker to hear us as well. As far as questions during the webinar, we are going to be answering probably quite a few of the questions that naturally come to mind during the conversation. If we don't, though, there is a questions box that you are more than welcome to ask your questions in. Myself, Elliot, or one of our assistants will be answering questions in there. If we do not get to all the questions, we definitely will have your sales rep reach out and make sure that the questions are you on the back end. Next slide, please. So my name, again, is Drew Thomason. I am a field sales manager here and run the Midwest for Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting North America. I'm joined today by Elliot Becker, who is a technology sales support specialist with us here at Wolters Kluwer. He is located out of the Chicago office. So Elliot will be walking us through the process of the Xpitax domestic outsourcing platform that we have today. And we'll be going through all of the fun stuff about that. So any questions, again, please do not hesitate to ask. Let's keep this conversational as possible. So with that, Elliot, I'll turn it over to you and kind of let you kick off our webinar.
Thanks, Drew. And again, thank you all for participating today. And when you're evaluating a outsourcing option, you know, a lot of reasons that folks have come to us for the solution is that they wanted to focus on higher margin consulting and advisory services. Or during the busyness of tax season, they needed to balance their employee workloads. How are you going to get this work done and alleviate the compressions and issues with quality loss? Or being able to focus in on other areas of margin or ways to save costs in terms of just hiring staff. So again, a lot of reasons that you might be coming. These are some that we've seen, and we have both onshore options, which you guys are going to be hearing a lot more about today, and we also have offshore options. And just kind of a brief history of, you know, what is our experience in doing this? Again, when you're picking a valued partner to work with, you know, why work with us? And 4 years ago, Wolters Kluwer purchased XEM, who is the leading provider of outsourcing of tax returns in the marketplace for professionals out there. And they really put together the people, processes, and technology to yield outstanding results in a very consistent, reasonable amount of time, and using a technology platform that really put all of the users, that's your firms, in control of knowing where their returns were at, who is doing that, how can they communicate with the folks that were actually getting the input into the return. So again, it's that people, process, and technology. Now, at Wolters Kluwer, we also had outsourcing that was onshore. I'm not sure if some of you folks were used that in the past too, and we've adopted a lot of the best practices from what XEM was doing and have integrated that into our onshore process. So have really improved it, especially with the technology platform, which is what we call XEM. It's a lightweight version. You might have heard of XEM. We call it Access Workflow now, where we give you a lightweight tracking system for the returns that are out there. So again, we have a full robust tracking system that can track any project that just is Access Workflow. Part of our turnkey system, you'll be getting a Access Workflow specifically for outsourcing. Many of you have seen this from Boomer. You know, this big triangle is getting all the work done during tax season, and you know, go try to find a senior these days to try to get work done. It's impossible, and the only way to get the amount of returns done and work we need to get done these days is by using outsourcing, by using automation, robotic process automation, bots. We use both in terms of being able to get things done and have a more consistent process in the work that we do. So what is the solution? With our solution under the Xpitax umbrella, there is the potential that you can do any kind of return. So our offshore team can do every kind of return, which can include corporate, partnership, not-for-profit, and more. Our onshore team specifically and only does 1040 and 1041 work. And what that does is, because it's onshore, the one critical barrier that some firms face is that they don't want to have that full page disclosure that the IRS mandates when things are offshore in the 1040 series of returns. That's called the 7216. With onshore, you don't have to worry about having to have that disclosure out there. But just bear in mind, for the corporate, partnership, business returns, not-for-profit returns, what we've seen is that most accountants interpret that IRS regulation. Again, I'm not an attorney. You guys would need to vet that yourself, but most of our clients look at it that for the business returns, they just put a small disclosure paragraph in their existing engagement letter. And for the business returns, they don't have to worry about necessarily getting that 7216 full page disclosure for the business. So I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that for the business returns, that might be an option, the offshore piece to it. So I am going to, in the beginning here, kind of distinguish between the difference between our onshore program and offshore program. Again, we're going to be focusing more on the onshore program because there is no 7216 consent form that's needed. Some of the differences that are kind of bullet point out there, the average price is, again, higher. You know, the challenges that you have in hiring staff now in the US, our trusted vendor that we work with, it's the same type of situation. So prices for that are a little bit higher. We only do 1040 work and 1041 work for onshore. Turnaround time is anywhere between 48 hours and 109 hours. And that has to do with the type of year. You know, when you're getting closer to the deadline time during, you know, the 4/15 deadline, you're getting closer in the March time frame. It's probably leaning closer to the longer time frame. When it's in the February area, you're probably leaning closer to the shorter time frame. We do the processing all year round, so that, you know, you could have started something now, it's still could go on during extension season, and whatever you take as the amount of returns you're going to do, you have that capability to process it during that full year. Now, offshore, if you are doing 1040s, you do need the 7216, but again, in terms of looking at the business returns, because this webinar is focusing in on the fact that, you know what, you don't necessarily need that for doing business returns. Offshore can be an option. You still need a disclosure probably in your engagement letter, but that's more of a small paragraph. And I'm just having that out there, and again, just reiterating that. Onshore, we only work with Pro System Tax and CCH Access Tax. So if onshore is the way that you want to go and need to go, those are the only two tax softwares that we will work with for our onshore. If you're someone on this call that has one of these other tax systems, we can do and work with you offshore with all of these other tax systems. And I've seen it where I've had some access tax pro system firms. I had one down in Florida where they did all their 1040s, they did all of those onshore. They did a number of their business returns with us offshore. So it's something where you could potentially mix and match, and everybody's firm is different on what and how they need to solve their specific business issues. So again, working with your particular rep, they can help you explore what is the best way to meet your specific firm's needs. This is a little bit better of a way of comparing the two in terms of turnaround time. Again, in this kind of grid-like look, you know, what is the staff experience between the two? The onshore folks, they're primarily working in a pool. There's more of a wider variety of staff between permanent preparers as well as temporary preparers. You know, so there's more of I would say a wider variety of the type of staff that we have. We work in a pooled approach onshore. You always get a preparer. That return is always getting reviewed. There's standardized processes that they're using, standardized work papers that are being used. These returns that you're getting back, think of this as, you know what, this is a senior that input all of the data into your return. So you still need to review it. You're still e-filing this return, and you're, again, always the one that's in contact with your client. We are never contacting your client. Now, in the offshore, I'm just kind of going through that again. In the offshore, you potentially can have a dedicated team. So you can have a dedicated preparer and a dedicated reviewer, but you'd have to, again, do minimums of 100 returns on the offshore. So again, there might be some of you that might want to mix and match. Hey, I want my 1040s and 1041s going offshore, but you know what? I might want to have, onshore, and I might want to have some of my business returns going offshore. Again, this is a better visual too, comparing and contrasting between the two. In terms of, you know, looking at the onshore, again, most of you are on this call for this. We've limited what the staff does, specifically the type of software they work with, specifically the returns that they work with. So that way, the quality can be improved, that our teams only have to be trained on one software. Our teams are only focused in on having to know one type of return, standardizing the processes. So our valued US partner that we are working with that has SOC 2 audits that are done on them. They're focused in on those returns. And think about the best results that you get. Think about just sending returns that I would say are kind of mid-tier returns to upper mid-tier returns. These are like having a good senior working on them, and that helps to eliminate compression. I had, again, a firm that was out east where they outsourced all of their mid-level returns. It was about 150 of them to our team, and they're like, oh my God, this was like way better than having to hire a senior, a lot more consistent. They kept the most difficult returns at their firm that they did, but they got rid of the stuff that was like the compression bottleneck, so they were able to focus in all of their time on their business returns and their most difficult 1040s. Again, turnaround time, you see as we get later in March, that turnaround time can go up because we're getting closer to those deadlines. So again, that's understandable. As you're in the February months, the turnaround time is a lot faster. How does this work? You know, what does it look like from your end? What does the process look like? We're going to give you a system that's called Access Workflow. This is a tracking system, and you're able to upload your source docs. So you take the PDF of your source docs and you would load it into the system. There's an area that you're able to load it. If you're using Pro System Tax, you would take the Pro System rolled forward return, so it's that data file. You would upload that data file for the current year. You would also give us a PDF of the prior year return, because our preparer is going to be looking at what did you do last year on this return? What did you know, what's might be was on there last year that could be missing this year? So they're putting in notes in terms of missing items, things of that nature. If you're an Access Tax user, the process is simpler. You don't have to worry about sending data files of the tax return. When you have Access Tax, we're able to set you up and set up the securities for you, where our team that's onshore in the US is going to be entering your data into the returns that you're allowing that you want to be outsourced. So they're entering that data in there, so it reduces the number of steps and things you have to do in terms of you don't have to send data files of returns back and forth. They're doing it into your native Access Tax. We're also going to give you free extra licenses for that team to work on, so it's not going to cost you extra money and extra licenses for them to do that. When you tell the team in the US, hey, get started on the return, that team has robotic process automation. They have scanning tools. They're going to organize your source documents in a meaningful work paper that you can follow, that follows the similar ways that you enter the data into the return. So it creates a consistent work paper that's in a bookmark PDF. They're going to validate a lot of the data from the source docs. They're going to be able to auto-populate that, validate that. But then there's a lot of the return they have to manually enter. They're then going to manually enter all of that information. And then a reviewer, again, who has a lot more experience than that preparer, is going to review that return with that standardized type of work paper that they have at our trusted partner doing this. And within 48 to 108 hours, and again, when it's in the February timeframe, it's really 42 to 72 hours. When you start getting to later March, that's when it starts getting to that longer time frame, because we're getting closer to that deadline. You'll get back that return to do that review. And this is the mechanism that you specifically see. This is what we call Access Workflow. So this is a route sheet in Access Workflow. Let's say you had a client John Smith. This is John Smith's route sheet. And on the route sheet, I just want to point out a couple things. So one of the things that you see here where it says points, this is the area where you would be able to give knowledge points. Think about this person that's doing the return. They're like a senior. So like if you, I don't know, let's say you were working with a dental office group, the guy was a dentist, and maybe in your state there were some unique things. This is where you would give that kind of knowledge point note to that person doing that return, what's happening. This is where that person, that preparer that is working on your return would be able to communicate with you, hey, there is some missing items. So that points area is your centralized communication piece between your team in the US and you. Now, we're looking at the document area. This is where you would be uploading the prior year 1040. So you're uploading that as a PDF because that's where the preparer is going to be comparing what is sent this year to last year. That's where they're going to be putting those missing item notes. They're doing that comparison. This is also where as a PDF, you're going to be uploading your source documents to us. Now, if you have pro system tax only, you're going to be uploading the data file of PFX, that rolled forward return, because your preparer is going to be entering the data into that data file, okay? Now, let's say 48 to 72 hours later, because you sent this in February, you're going to get back the return, and where it says to firm, this is where you're going to be downloading your team's work papers. So you're going to be able to see, oh, these are consistent work papers for you to do review. If you're a pro system firm, they're going to have the data file of your pro system return that has the data in it. You'll download that data file. You will upload that data file into your pro system software, and then you're able to do your review. If you have Access Tax, way easier. There's no uploading and downloading of data files. You're just basically downloading the work papers that you got from the preparer and reviewer, and then you're going into your Access Workflow tax return. You're doing the review right from there, and then you're looking at the points and seeing what's missing, what, review notes you have, all that communication that's happening. So again, that would be happening between 48 to 72 hours. This is where you're getting that information. So pretty easy that you have this route sheet. Where it says John Smith, you have full visibility and control over this whole process. John Smith is a return that is one that you're thinking of outsourcing, so the status is to be outsourced. When you tell the team in the US, hey, I want you guys to start working on it, that's when that clock starts ticking. And again, we're doing audits and reviews. We're always testing the metrics and validating and making sure that our teams are getting the returns back in the time frames that we indicate, and that they are doing the best accuracy possible. So we're always doing audits on this. We're always looking to continually improve what we're doing. You would be choosing outsourced domestic, that's onshore. Then that's telling the team, hey, get started on this return. The clock starts ticking, and who is this team that's getting it? So you're gonna then get someone that is able to prepare the return. The preparers are entry level. They have 1 to 3 years equivalency. They're getting trained on that specific software. Again, whether it's Access Tax, whether it's Pro System Tax, they're putting in the data entry. They're using the robotic process automation. They're validating the information that's coming in there. And then they have a supervisor that is reviewing it. So again, they're getting trained in standardized processes, work papers, how to do this in a standardized way. that supervisor is then verifying and reviewing, is the data that was sent, was that entered in the right way? They have their tick marks, they have their review stuff. These supervisors have anywhere from 3 to 7 years equivalent training, certification, and whatnot. Now, how do you have visibility into everything? And this is the beauty part of Access Workflow. This is a slimmed down version of our fully functional system that tracks any project. This is specifically tracking the outsourced tax return. On the top where it says admin tasks, think of this as your firm. So this is your firm. These are all of the tax returns that you are thinking about outsourcing that you had on your list. And where it says to be outsourced, let's say you were thinking about, I want to send out Jamie Bellinger landscaping. So you would flip the switch on this from to be outsourced, you would send it to outsourced domestic. That's telling the team in the US where it says outsourced, this is what they're doing. You have full visibility. The first thing that you're going to see is, hey, that person that you have that picked up that return, they're going to have their initials. You're always going to know who's working on your return, who's responsible for it, who's reviewing it. You're going to see, oh yeah, this thing is now awaiting bookmarking. And now once the bookmarking is in there, they did the validation, you're going to see, oh yeah, now my guy or gal that's working on it is prepping this return. You know what? Now I see my return is in review, and that supervisor that, again, would be able to see their initials, who's working on this, who's doing it, they're doing their final review on it. And then what would happen is that within 48 to 72 hours generally, you're going to see outsource awaiting acceptance. That means this is ready for you to review that return. So anywhere you see it in blue, like we were talking about sending out Jamie Bellinger landscaping, that's a hyperlink. So if you clicked on that blue, that would open up that route sheet we saw a couple minutes ago. Remember, that's where you sent us your source docs, sent us the data file of the return if it was PFX tax, and that would open up that same route sheet, and that from area, that's from us, the outsourced team, they actually are sending you back the work papers, and if it's PFX, it's the completed data file, which then you'd upload. If it's just access tax, they're sending you back the work paper, you're getting the work papers there, and you're then doing the review on the return. But you have full visibility. When was this started? Where is it at? What is the status? Who's working on it at the outsource? Who's responsible on your team? So total control over everything that's happening. You also notice where it says PTS, that's points. So in this case, what that means where you see 3 over 3, that means on Jamie Bellinger's, there's actually 3 points, which is the denominator. And the numerator means out of those 3 points that are out there, 3 of them are open. Where we look at Erica Jackson, which is just above that, we see 1 out of 3. That means there's only 1 point open. Now, you'd click on the points, and that's your communication vehicle. So with the points, you're seeing, oh my God, there's missing items. My guy or gal that was doing that return, they're giving me a missing item list like right away. Wow, so I can see, oh yeah, this was on the return last year. We don't see it on this year. You know, you have that list. You also have questions. They might have questions on things. This is where you're able to give the knowledge points. So the knowledge points and instructions. Remember I was saying, oh, you know what, in the state of New York, if they're a dental practice and they're Schedule C or whatever it is, you're putting that information in here. Think about these people as your extension of your team, and you're in control of saying, are these points actually closed to your satisfaction? You're seeing the responses and back and forth. If this was email, I hate email. Go tracking email. This consolidates everything in one place. It makes this a lot better process, a lot less errors. This is where you also put your review notes, but where it gets even better. I have a firm, Claire Daniels, she's down in North Carolina. She outsources all of her 1040s, and she goes, oh my God, during compression season, what happens is that when it hits February 20th, her team in the past, before they outsourced, they would say, we couldn't think about doing a 1040 return. What would happen in their practice was all hands on deck. They were focused on the 3/15 deadline. Everyone was doing business returns from like February 15th to March 15th. That means clients were sending in source stocks for their 1040s. No one was touching it for a month. Now, what would happen is you send this stuff to us, let's say in February, within 48 to 72 hours, you're getting a missing item list. So what Claire would do is she puts a check mark in these boxes. It then allows you to create an email. And this email would be coming from you and your phone. We're never communicating with your clients. But what Claire loves is now she's emailing a missing item list to her clients from her phone. Think about that. A lot of times the biggest bottleneck is not only just the compression of getting the returns done at that point in time, it's also getting all of the source documents you need. It's like corralling a bunch of cats. That's what I've heard it referred to by many firms. So Clear and firms love this, getting those missing items like that and being able to communicate that. This is what the work papers look like. So again, the work papers, it's a bookmark PDF that you're going to get. They're in a format that follows how are you generally entering the data into your returns. You're also going to get an Excel spreadsheet that will come along with this that helps tie out these numbers. So again, the consistency in these work papers will help you in your review process. I've had many firms tell me that the consistency in the work papers they get from our teams, both onshore and offshore, really aids them in shortening their review process because we have a lot of consistency because of the number of returns that we do. We have to have consistency in our processes to get them to you. Security is a critical thing. Anytime that you're working with vendors, you have to have the surety. Are they taking data security seriously? This is our business. So the mechanism, the sending of the data, the movement of the data with what we call access workflow, we get SOC 2 certified audits on those processes and security 100%. Our trusted vendor that we've been working with, they're SOC 2 certified audits on them for onshore too. So again, data security is the highest to us and critical, and we take that very seriously. And remember, when you choose onshore, your data is never leaving the US. And by the way, if you ever go with offshore with us, our data is also housed in the US. Your data never leaves the US. So we have secure protocols and systems in place if you ever also choose offshore. We have a turnkey system for you. We're going to have the training. We're going to have, the ability to show you the communication. How do you use this access workflow system, train you on it, help you set this up. That's part of it. If you're an access tax customer, we actually have our team set up the security features and protocols to make it more seamless and easy for you to do this process. And we are with you every step of the way. Now, things that you might be thinking of in terms of building your strategy, the number one thing that you came on here today, you took the biggest step. You evaluated your situation. You said, hey, I need help getting my returns out. So then the next thing is determine how you want to redistribute work. You might be like that firm that I had in Florida where they outsourced all of the 1040s onshore with us. And then they chose to do a number of the business returns offshore. So they actually did a mix of the two. Or you could be, hey, I'm just looking at onshore. I don't want to think about 7216. If I do it on onshore, I never even have to think about anything like that. So whatever your situation is, please talk to your rep. We can craft a specific package to address what is your need and help you achieve what you need to happen. So you're deciding which clients, what type of returns that are out there. I had a firm that did all kinds of charity returns, 990s, and they said, you know what, we want to outsource all the 990s because that was the bottleneck. So they did that with our offshore. So again, whatever it is, and I kind of just threw out those couple examples. Who at your firm is going to be that point person coordinator? And again, if you're going to use business returns with us and going offshore with the business returns, you don't need the 7216, but a paragraph of disclosure is generally all that is needed in the engagement letter. So just, making sure that you have that covered, and we can walk you through that process of that. Again, I'm not an attorney, I'm just describing to you how most firms operate and interpret that. And I wanted to give you the option and opportunity that you not only could do the onshore all the 1040s with us that way, but if there was business returns and things that you needed help with, there's ways that you can do that. And you don't necessarily need to have a 7216 full page disclosure. And that's why I wanted to mention that. These are some of our customers, just unsolicited feedback. This is at the end of this last tax season on what a difference it made to our team. I'm going to pass this back over to Drew at this point in time, because Drew is going to talk about pricing, next steps, and going forward. So I'm going to put this back to Drew.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elliot. I appreciate you going through the presentation with us today and getting us all up to date and up to speed on how the process works, the type of returns we can do, the softwares we work with, and ultimately just making us feel more comfortable with the outsourcing solution. So again, thank you for going through that with us. Guys, with it being later in the year, ultimately urgency is key here, right? So being able to put a process in place within your firm prior to tax season is imperative, especially if this is the first time outsourcing. Now we do have consultants on our end that absolutely will hold your hand through the entire process. We'll do a return with you as far as getting it submitted to our team, reviewing it, and making sure that everything goes smoothly and that you are comfortable with operating within our process. So no fears there. We will hold your hand through everything with that. We also monitor your progress throughout tax season, and we'll be in constant communication, oftentimes bi-weekly with the firm, to make sure that everything is continually going smooth throughout the process. The other important thing that we need to think about is capacity. We only have a limited number of returns that we can do. This late in the year, the capacity is dwindled down to almost nothing. So again, I say urgency is very important right now to A, get process in place within your firm, and then B, also get secure your capacity with us so that we can do some tax returns for you all. As far as pricing goes, when you look at our pricing model for domestic, which is what we mostly cover today, our average price for domestic is right around $450 per return. We do kind of treat it as a, I will say, you put like a retainer on file with us, and as you send returns, some returns might be more, some returns might be less. We charge by the complexity for the return and the amount of source stocks associated with it. So one return might cost you $300, the next return might cost you $600, right? It just depends on the type of return that you send us. And as you send us returns, we pull from this retainer that you have on file with us. Once that retainer is out, you can continue to send us returns, or you can pause at any time. If you do continue to send us returns after the retainer is used, you will just be billed on the back end, and we will true up with you on a monthly invoice. So everything we will charge is tier 2, so that would include 13 to 60 pages of source documents. So you might be asking yourself, what if I have a Fidelity statement or a Morgan Stanley statement that has 20 pages of instructions and blank pages and nonsense and just 1 or 2 pages of actual documentation? Yes, the best advice I can give you guys is before you send us those source documents, pull the junk out, right? Otherwise, you'll be charged with them. So small cleanup on the front end ultimately does save you a lot of money on the back end. Typically, you all are probably doing this anyway as you're passing things along to your staff members to prepare the returns. If there's any questions as far as pricing, please reach out directly to your sales rep. We made sure that all of them have this ready to go for you and can explain further if need be. Again, I do want to highlight the urgency as far as getting process in place within your firm, and then also securing capacity. We will be sold out in the coming days. That is just kind of the reality of where we sit right now based on the time of year that it is. So again, thank you all so much for joining us today on our webinar. Hopefully we were able to answer some questions that you might have in regards to the outsourcing process and how we operate here at Wolters Kluwer. Again, any questions that you have, please do not hesitate to reach out to me, hesitate to reach out to your sales rep. We will get back with you and answer any questions that we ultimately can. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.